Hi guys, welcome to my very first book haul of 2025, and considering we are very close to the halfway point of the year and I'm only talking to you guys about 28 books today, I think I've done really well. Now, to clarify, technically I have hauled more than 28 books this year. I think we are all very aware of this if you watch my monthly unboxing videos. But for my actual hauls, I do not include the books that I receive in regular monthly subscription boxes, while I do include the extra special editions that I pay for myself that are from subscription box companies. And this is because, for the most part, the books in the regular monthly subscription boxes are ones that I'm receiving without really knowing what they're about. They've been selected for me. I would not necessarily have gone out and purchased them if they hadn't have been part of a subscription, and I don't really know that much about them because I didn't buy them with intent. And so for the purpose of a haul, I can't really tell you too much about them without just reading from the synopsis, which you guys can do at any point, and I also already do for you in my regular monthly unboxing videos. So I have hauled more than 28 books this year, obviously, but these are the 28 that I have brought into my collection with intent. Saying that, I do have more books from the publisher than I have probably ever included in a haul. I've had a couple of boxes from publishers recently, as well as a couple of separate arcs. This is very unusual for me, if I'm being honest, but we'll get to those and talk about why I received them when we get to them. And while I don't typically include them, I do just have 2 books that were included in regular monthly subscription boxes in this haul because they were on my anticipated releases of 2025 list, and so I was going to be getting a copy of them anyway, and I'm fortunate enough that they were monthly subscription box books, so we'll talk about those as well. But as usual, I have split this haul down into the types of books they are. So we have books I've received from the publisher, special editions from subscription box companies, and books that I have bought new, just generally, like Waterstones editions, or I've literally just bought them from a shop or ordered them online. I am currently in my ebook era. I have been reading a lot on Libby, like ebook copies of books that I already own. I'm just preferring to read ebooks instead of physical books right now. I find it more comfortable. So I have bought a couple of ebooks over the last 6 months. They are generally like 99p copies of books that I already own, or like book club books where I want to get an ebook copy instead of the physical. But I do not track my ebook purchases because typically I don't have very many of them. I think I bought 2 or 3 ebooks over the last 6 months, and typically, as they do not take up space on my actual shelves, they're not really much of a problem. So I haven't included any ebooks in here this time. Sometimes I do, but I just haven't really been keeping track of them if I'm being honest. But we'll start off with the smallest stack, I guess, which are the books that I have bought that are not special editions from book boxes. The first of which is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. Now, this is an extra copy of a book that I already have, a book that I've already read. Wuthering Heights is one of my favorite classics, and I was shopping, I think it was on Curtis's birthday. We went into York and we went into this little independent bookstore where they had these Wordsworth classic paperback editions of a bunch of different classics, and I really wanted one, and because they had Wuthering Heights and I just thought that the edition was stunning, I did pick it up. Absolutely did not need this, but it might be my prettiest edition. I do have the Penguin English Classics edition, like the paperback as well, which I really love. But if you guys are unaware of Wuthering Heights, it's like kind of a romance, but it's actually not. It's about these 2 terrible people who are in love with each other and kind of deserve each other and how awful they can both be. But it's not like really a romance. It's a gothic story about Cathy and Heathcliff. Cathy is like a lady of the manor, and Heathcliff is this boy that's kind of taken in by her family. I can't remember. Oh, he's a foundling that's adopted, and he falls in love with Cathy, but he's not a respectable gentleman. So he leaves Wuthering Heights and he goes out and he makes his fortune, and then he returns and essentially just punishes the family and takes his revenge for the way that they treated him while still being in love with and obsessed with Catherine. I also have The Fox and the Falcon by Piper CJ. This one is the sequel to The Deer and the Dragon, which is a book that I was very surprised actually when I enjoyed. But it is following a woman who is an author, and she's writing this series of books with each installment following a different pantheon of gods. And she has this guy that she's like low-key in love with, who she doesn't actually think exists. Like, madness runs in her family and she thinks he's a figment of her imagination, but when he mysteriously goes missing and she can't find him, she is approached by a god from the Norse pantheon who tells her that this guy that she's in love with is real, has been real the entire time, and he needs her help. I finally got my hands on Silverborn by Jessica Townsend. This is the 4th book in the Nevermore series, which is a middle grade series. At this point, it's the only middle grade series that I keep up with. It's one of my favorite series of all time, and I actually would like to reread books 1 to 3 before I get into book 4, because this is the start of a new story arc as well, I think. But this is about a cursed child called Morrigan Crow, who is destined to die on the eve of her like 11th or 12th birthday, and her town blames absolutely everything that goes wrong on her. So they have this day in this town where all of the children are bid on to become apprentices in the future by the influential people in this town, and Morrigan, as this cursed child that's going to die anyway, is not expecting anyone to bid on her, but she does actually receive a couple of bids, one of which is from Jupiter North, who is this very whimsical, very charming man that sweeps her away to the magical city of Nevermore and enrolls her in a series of trials that will gain her entry to Wunsock, which is the Wondrous Society, which is a magic school. I did also pick up another edition of one of my favorite books, which is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. This one is the Mandarin edition. If you watch my China vlog, you will see where I did pick this one up, and it comes in like a cellophane wrapper. So I said that I would show you guys like the special things about it in my haul after I'd unsealed it when I got home. So it obviously has a different cover to the original with some foiling on it, but then this cover is actually like a dust jacket, and underneath it has this, but it also comes with some extra stuff. There is a edge on it as well, which is cute. Oh, this is the sticker that was on the cellophane that I've kept because the translation is really funny, but it also has this sticker sheet. We have, I don't know what this is. I don't know if this is a bookmark, but I'm here for it. And we also have this really big poster as well. So I thought it was just a cool thing to have for one of my favorite books. I would be interested to see if there's any more Mandarin translations of Ali Hazelwood books, because I really like this, if I'm being honest. I think that's really cool. And it is the first Ali Hazelwood book that I read. All of my Ali Hazelwood books that I've read have been 5 stars, but this is the one I think that is my favorite because it was my first experience with Ali Hazelwood. There is another Ali Hazelwood book in this haul as well, but this is the first of her STEMinist romances, following a girl called Olive who is pretending to be dating somebody because her ex-boyfriend, or this guy that she was casually dating that she's not really into, is actually really into her friend. Her friend is into him, but her friend doesn't want to kind of like cross that boundary because he's a guy that dated her best friend. So the main character is pretending to date someone else. So her friend thinks that she's moved on, but what she's actually doing is just sneaking out to the university to work on, I'm pretty sure it's like her PhD project. And her best friend comes in and sees her there one night when she's supposed to be on a date. So she just grabs the closest guy to her and kisses him so that her friend thinks that she is indeed on a date. And this turns out to be a PhD professor who everybody hates because he's a bit of a hard ass and he's really grumpy. And then those two agree to fake date so that they can keep up the ruse to Olive's best friend that she is actually dating someone and she has moved on, which, to be fair, she was never really that into that guy anyway. And the guy, Adam, agrees to fake date Olive because the university that he works for considers him to be a flight risk because they think he's too talented to be there and he's going to move on. So they've stopped the funding that he's receiving for his projects, and he thinks that his relationship, his fake relationship with Olive, will be enough to signal to the university that he is putting down roots and that they can continue to fund his projects. I also pre-ordered The Dark Mirror by Samantha Shannon. This one is the 5th book in the Bone Season series. I am actually not going to be reading this for quite some time because it's just taking so damn long for these books in the series to come out. I've already reread the series once, so I've read it, the first 3 books, twice, and then the 4th book once, and I do really need, because of how complex this series is, I need to reread it again, but I'm not going to do it 3 more times for this book and then the next 2 books in the series. So I'm just going to keep hold of them until the final book's out and then do like a full series read through. But this one is a difficult series to describe because I think it falls into multiple genres. It has a bit of sci-fi, a bit of paranormal, a bit of fantasy, also a bit of dystopian because it is set in this alternate history but also futuristic version of London. So I think it's set in around 2040, but the point that the world changed to make this future was like hundreds of years ago. It is set in a world, it's like a Big Brother kind of world where the government is always watching you and being a psychic is illegal. And our main character does have psychic abilities. She's a dream walker and she is the second in command for one of the psychic gangs of London. So one day she's going to visit her father and she has to use her abilities to defend herself and she is caught. Now she thinks this is a death sentence, but actually she is taken to this secure location where the world is thrown open as she finds out that the real reason why the government is constantly watching them and why psychics are illegal is much more complex and insidious than she ever realized. I also picked up Onyx Storm. This is one I'm also not currently prepared to read because I haven't read Iron Flame yet. I am going to be making a video that's coming very soon that features series that I started, and I would like to reread the first book that I read to be able to continue on with the series. The Imperium series is going to be one of those. I thought this was a trilogy, but I heard it's going to be 5 books now, so I don't know what the deal is with the next 2 books, because isn't it called the Imperium trilogy? It says the Imperium series now, but I'm guessing I'm sure it was originally the Imperium trilogy, and I'm guessing it's been extended. But this one is following a girl who is about to attend a military academy. She's always dreamed of being a scribe. Her father was a scribe, and she's trained all her life to go into the scribe path of this university. But her mother is a dragon rider, and no daughter of hers is going to be anything but a dragon rider, even though our main character does have a chronic illness which she thinks makes her incapable of passing the dragon rider training, which can often result in death. So essentially she doesn't really have a choice, and she has to suck it up and go through this rigorous training to become a dragon rider. And through it all, she not only finds love, but she finds an inner strength that she did not know she possessed. Moving on, I guess we'll do the books that I received from the publisher next. So I received a box from Source Books when they launched their UK social accounts, which included their 6 fan favorites. So 6 of the most popular books that they published, 2 of which I already owned or had read, and then 4 of which that I haven't. I have since read 2 of them, and 2 are still on my TBR. But the 2 that I've read, 1 was okay, 1 I gave 5 stars to. So Neon Gods by Katie Robert is the one that I thought was okay. I have read from Katie Robert before. She is a very popular romance author, and she writes smutty BDSM romances. So this one in particular is a Hades and Persephone series. It's the first book in the Olympus series by her. Is that what it's called? I think it's just called the Olympus series. So this is a contemporary romance set in a city called Olympus, where the Greek gods like Zeus, Demeter, Hermes, they're all titles. They're not actually the names of the gods. They signify the role that these people play within this city. Persephone is to be married to Zeus. Her mother has decided, Zeus has announced it publicly, and she can actually think of nothing worse. So she is escaping her engagement announcement that she had no idea was going to happen, and she's herded by Zeus's men to this bridge that crosses over into the underworld. So she then starts to flee, and she ends up on the other side of the bridge where she meets Hades, who she actually thought didn't exist. She thought that Hades' line had died out, and those two decide to fake date so that Persephone can appear to be ruined goods to put Zeus off her, and so that Hades can gain revenge on Zeus for killing his family. The 5-star read, which was completely unexpected, was The Boyfriend by Freda McFadden. It is very rare that I give a thriller 5 stars, but I really loved how compulsively readable this was, as well as the shock factor and how the plot twist took me by surprise. So this one is following a woman in New York City who is struggling to date. She wants to settle down, she wants to find the one, but after yet another bad date, she meets this guy outside of her apartment building who swoops in and saves the day when her date got a little bit too handsy, wouldn't take no for an answer. So they end up going their separate ways, but she sees this as a missed connection, and she is trying to hunt him down, but she gets very distracted when one of her best friends is murdered. The police don't really know what happened and who killed her friend, but they are pretty sure that a guy who is known for dating his victims before he kills them is responsible for the death of her friend. Eventually some time passes, they haven't found the killer, and our main character once again stumbles upon this amazing guy that helped her out outside of her apartment building, and they begin to date. But as their relationship develops and he kind of stays really cagey and distant, she starts to be a little bit suspicious of him. Now we do have a secondary timeline in here as well, which is the past timeline, but we are following this guy that our main character is dating when he is in high school, and he is about to embark upon his first love. He's met this girl who he's infatuated by. He thinks she is a beauty. He also wants to kill her though. So we're following these two timelines as they converge in unexpected ways. And then the two that I haven't read, I am very excited for these because I feel like they're going to be really fast, easy, digestible reads, which I love from time to time. They're both romances. I think that this one is a new adult romance. It's My Fault by Mercedes Ron. This one has been turned into a movie on Amazon Prime. I think there's a Spanish movie, and then I think there's also like a London adaptation of it as well. This one is a little bit of a taboo romance because I think it is a stepbrother romance, but it also has like the company that's produced it, I'm pretty sure are the same ones that did After and Beautiful Disaster, so I'm expecting it to be a similar kind of story. And then the other one is If He Had Been With Me by Laura Nolan. I'm not sure, but I think that this is a young adult romance and it is a ex-best friend romance, so it's following these two kids, two teenagers who used to be best friends, used to be inseparable, but they have grown apart throughout the years. And the end is really ominous because it says, as time passes, Autumn realizes she might not get another chance to make things right before it's too late. So I don't know what the tea is in here, but once again, I'm expecting a level of angst and drama that I actually really tend to enjoy in romance. I also very recently received a box of 4 books from Penguin Michael Joseph because I am now one of their Siren VIPs, which is actually very exciting. It's kind of like being a rep, so I anticipate over the next year I'm going to receive maybe some arcs from them, some of their new releases. There may be like events and stuff associated with this, and they sent their introductory box to me just very recently, actually it was this week, which included 4 of their releases, 2 fantasy ones, 2 contemporary. So the 2 contemporary paperbacks we have, the first one is Hotter in the Hamptons by Tinks. This one is a sapphic romance about a woman who flees New York City because somebody writes a scathing expose on her. But as she is running away from all of the like trouble that has followed in the wake of this expose, she ends up being attracted to the woman who wrote said expose and essentially ruined her life. One Golden Summer is a contemporary romance, but I'm expecting it to go along the lines of like women's fiction or just general contemporary fiction a little bit more. And this one is following a woman who is returning to the lake where she spent her summers to look after her grandmother who has had an operation. And while she's there, she rekindles a relationship that she had earlier in her life with this man whose photograph she took, and said photograph eventually launched the main character's career. I then have a sapphic romantasy, which is The Lady of the Lake by Jean Menzies. A lot of you guys will be familiar with Jean as a booktuber. She's one of the original UK booktubers. Her channel is Jean's Thoughts, and this one is a sapphic Arthurian retelling. I'm really hoping I enjoy this one. I do really like Arthurian legend, but I've yet to find a reimagining of it that works for me, so I'm hoping that this one is the one. And the one from the box that I was most excited about is Shield of Sparrows by Devney Perry. Now, I don't know if this is Devney Perry's fantasy debut, but I know that Devney Perry is an indie, like a self-pub author, traditionally associated with contemporary romance, I think. And this one is the story of a princess who has a blood pact. It's an ancient treaty that is sealed with her own blood, and she has to go on this mission that she never really signed up for with a brooding warrior that hates her. So it's like a hate to love princess warrior kind of relationship, which I definitely can get behind. And I've heard, like I said, good things about Devney Perry, so I'm hoping that I really enjoy this one. I've also received 2 arcs this year. The first one I think I got back in January from Galanx, and it was The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. Unfortunately, I have read this and I did not love it, but it was an anticipated release of mine. If you want to know my full thoughts, I'll link the vlog where I read this one. But this one is the first book in Joe Abercrombie's brand new series. It is a grimdark series following a priest who is traveling to the city because he thinks he's going to get his big break, like his big promotion, his career defining role. And when he meets the Pope, she actually tasks him with escorting a lost princess to her throne, and she assigns him a congregation of devils and monsters to help them along that way. So there's a vampire, a sorcerer, a werewolf, a cursed knight who are responsible for getting the princess to this throne unscathed. The other arc is Terror at the Gates by Scarlett St. Clair, which is a July 2025 release. I'm going to be going to a launch event for this as well, which is very exciting. And this one is the first book in Scarlett St. Clair's new series, so I'm expecting it to be romantasy. It seems like it's a little bit of an urban fantasy as well, which is exciting, following a girl who uses her magic to steal things, and she ends up in possession of this beautiful blade. But when she's trying to sell it, the usual buyer that she goes to dies while inspecting it. So she goes to this guy that rules the city to try and gain some information on this blade, and he is concerned that this is going to bring her a whole world of trouble, which eventually starts to converge on the both of them. And then we just have our special editions from book boxes, which is the biggest stack that we have, and it's mainly because a lot of the new stuff that I'm reading is general subscription box books. So when it comes to purchasing sequels, I am tending to get the matching book box editions instead of like the regular ones. But the first ones we have are from Illumicrate, with our very first book actually being from their contemporary romance spin-off brand Afterlife, and it is of course an Ali Hazelwood book. It is Deep End. I have not read this one yet, but I'm very excited in the way that I'm excited for all Ali Hazelwood releases. All I know about this one is that it is a romance between two swimmers, and I actually cannot tell you any more than that because I put the custom dust jacket on, so I don't have a synopsis. But with Ali Hazelwood, I don't really need to know too much because I'm expecting to love it anyway. I also pre-ordered Faithbreaker by Hannah Kana, which is the third book in the Fallen Gods trilogy, the first book being Godkiller. I actually read Godkiller earlier this year and I really enjoyed it, so I'm glad that I decided to commit to getting the Illumicrate editions of these books. But this series is set in a world where gods used to rule, like they used to be heavily worshipped, and the king has outlawed it. So there is a city where many worshippers live, there's many shrines to gods, and that is now forbidden, like you're not allowed to go into that city. However, our main characters throughout the course of book one decide that they do indeed have to venture to this forbidden city. So we're following a god killer called Kissan, who is a mercenary but specifically hired to kill gods, which used to be something that had to be done under the radar, but since the king has outlawed the worship of gods, Kissan's business is above board and on the up and up, and she meets a child who is actually tied to a god, which shouldn't happen. Gods should be tied to shrines. So Kissan, against her better judgment, agrees to accompany this child to the Forbidden City to try and solve this god problem and detach the god, because they're both in a lot of physical pain if they try to like stray away from each other. And our third character is a tortured knight called Elagast, who is very loyal to his king, but his king has decided some things, like some of the laws he's put in place, including outlawing the gods, Elagast does not necessarily agree with. And so he has put down his sword and he has opened a little bakery for himself where he works out his problems in his bread dough, but he has to pick up his sword once again and ends up traveling once again to this Forbidden City because his king is in dire need of his help. I also read This Woven Kingdom by Tahara Murphy for an episode of Shelve It or Scrap It, and that edition is one of my favorite Illumicrate editions that they've ever done. So I hunted down an edition of These Infinite Threads, which is, I think this one's book 2 in the series, and they still had book 3, which is all This Twisted Glory, in the Illumicrate shop. So this series is set in a world where the Jinn and the humans have a tenuous peace between them. The Jinn have been afforded all the same rights as humans, but it's actually a facade. Like, they are still looked down upon, they're oppressed, they're not allowed to use their abilities, but it is seen as like a freedom and an equality, which in reality doesn't really exist. And our main character is on the run, like her family were killed, and she is just trying to keep her head down and make a living for herself so she can open up her own business as a seamstress. So she's working as a housemaid in this like noble house, and she's also on the side making dresses for nobles. Now our male main character is the prince, and he has been called home because his grandfather has decided that it is time for him to rule. It's time for him to come back and stay in the city and learn how to actually take over from his grandfather when his grandfather eventually dies. And one day the prince sees our main character in the city be accosted by a thief, but the way she diffuses the situation seems very suspicious to him, and the more closely he follows her, the more he realizes that she could actually be a threat to his kingdom in a way that he never imagined. This is kind of maybe one that I regret. I haven't decided yet. I got the Illumicrate edition of House of Flame and Shadow. Now, it is no secret at this point that House of Earth and Blood is my favorite book of all time, but I dislike House of Sky and Breath, and I hate House of Flame and Shadow. However, I did really want the page overlays from this, and I do also really like the reversed dust jacket art on here. However, as this series is no longer one of my favorite series of all time because it's only book 1 that I adore, I don't feel like I need as many editions of this as I do, so there is a possibility that I'm going to keep the overlays and sell the book eventually. But if you guys did not know what Crescent City is about, it is Sarah J Maas' massive urban fantasy series following a half-fae woman called Bryce Quinlan, who is tasked by the archangel of the city, who's kind of like the governor, the ruler, with investigating a string of murders. It is a string of murders they originally thought was solved. They thought that they caught the killer. However, when a new body turns up in the city, they realize that they were mistaken, and they send Bryce to investigate, even though she's an antiquities dealer, because they think that she has a personal tie to the case. And because she is an antiquities dealer, she's not especially experienced in investigation work, and it's obviously quite dangerous. They assign her the fallen angel Hunt Athalar to serve as her bodyguard throughout the course of the investigation. I just have one pre-order from the Locked Library, which is The Book That Held Her Heart by Mark Lawrence. This one is book 3 in the library trilogy, which I'll be honest, I have not started this series yet, but I have read the Book of the Ancestor trilogy by Mark Lawrence, or the first 2 books, and I really enjoyed it. This was the first book in this series, was the first Locked Library book, the one that they catfished us all with, and I really liked that edition, so I wanted to make sure that I had matching editions of the rest of the series. I know that this does indeed contain a library. That is all I know about this. It's fantasy, it's adult fantasy, and I don't have this as book 3, so I can't read the synopsis, but I know that I like Mark Lawrence, or what I've read from him. I've also heard that this is a pretty good series, or the first book is good at least, from people whose opinions I trust. Next, we are moving on to Fairy Loot. So I guess I will start with the 2 books that they featured in their regular monthly boxes that were on my anticipated releases, so I was going to try and get my hands on a copy anyway. The first one was their April book, which is Gifted and Talented by Olivia Blake. I have read the Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake, really enjoyed it. I've also read the Masters of Death, which I thought was a jolly good time. I don't like a jolly good time, but it was like fun to read. And this one is actually probably one of my most anticipated releases from Olivia Blake, because it has been described as a like fantastical Succession. And I'm a big fan of Succession. I'm hoping it has the level of petty drama that Succession has, but it is essentially following a group of siblings, there's 3 or 4 of them, whose father owns a magitech company, and just like Succession, they are battling to be the person that inherits this company when their father passes away. Their May book was The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig, which I read One Dark Window last year and I really enjoyed it. I actually think it might have been the year before at this point, and I really need to finish that duology before I start with this, but I really love the uniqueness of the world and the magic system in One Dark Window, as well as the like atmospheric writing. So I was anticipating a new release from Rachel Gillig, and this one I'm pretty sure is going to be like a romantasy, and it is following a girl who is a diviner. She lives in a cathedral. She receives like prophecies from like these divine beings, and a heretical knight arrives at this cathedral, and when the rest of the diviners start to go missing one by one, she has to team up with this knight to try and get to the bottom of what is happening to the rest of the diviners before they come for her. I then just have 2 additional special editions that I picked up from Fairy Loot. The first one is Kiki's Delivery Service by Iko Kodono. This one is very similar to the edition they did of Howl's Moving Castle, which I loved, and it is another story that inspired a Ghibli movie. I'm a big fan of translated Japanese fiction, as well as like whimsical children's stories, which in some regard I am. There are quite a few that I like, but whimsy and me are not 2 things that often go together, if I'm being honest, but I thought that I would give this one a try. It's a Japanese classic and the edition is stunning. And this one is following a young witch who on her 13th birthday has to follow the witch's tradition of traveling to an otherwise mundane town and bringing magic to it. So she travels to the seaside location where she has to gain the trust of the locals before she can start to help them out with her magic. I also picked up the Fairy Loot edition of The Ragpicker King by Cassandra Clare. I have my issues with Cassandra Clare, but I do consistently enjoy her books. I have not read Swordcatcher yet, which is book 1 in this series, but as I do generally like Cassandra Clare, and that is her adult fantasy debut, and I have actually sampled the first 50 pages of it, I wanted to make sure that I had a matching edition of book 2 in case I do love the series, which I actually anticipate I'm going to enjoy it quite a bit. So from what I remember of book 1, this one is about a prince and the sword catcher. So the sword catcher is the person who has to stand in for the prince on occasions where they think the prince might be under threat of assassination. So he is essentially like the prince's body double and also his bodyguard. And we are also following two female characters. I don't really know who one of them is, but I know that one of them is a magic wielder whose magic is looked down upon and like strictly regulated. That's pretty much all I remember from the first 50 pages that I read, but I do consistently like Cassandra Clare, and this is also like multi-perspective high fantasy. So I'm hoping that I really enjoy it, and I think I'm going to. And then the last two books I have are both from Goldsborough. They are both sequels that I've pre-ordered. The first one is Four Ruined Realms by Mike Holland, which is the sequel to Five Broken Blades. So Five Broken Blades is a heist story where 5 people down on their luck, criminals, people on the run, people with nothing left to lose, are assembled to take down the king. So it's like a heist story with some like romance, high action, found family. Thoroughly enjoyed book 1 and would recommend the audiobook as well for this series. And then the last one is the sequel to Feybound, which is Cursebound by Sarah El-Arifi. That one is a story of 2 sisters who are elves living in a world where there used to also be fae and humans. However, both of those species have died out and only elves exist. They're also at war with each other, like the different clans of elves. And one of our main characters is a general. So on the morning of her big promotion, her sister gives her a prophecy that it's something like you will seek glory to the east. So when, I think it's Yeran is the one who is the general, when she goes out on this mission that ends up turning out to be like kind of a wash, she remembers what her sister said and she goes out to seek her glory, which actually ends in a massive disaster that gets a ton of the soldiers under her care killed. And for this, she is exiled. Her sister obviously cares about her and feels some sort of guilt for what has happened, so she also voluntarily goes into exile with her, along with Yeran's second in command, who also feels partially responsible for what happened. And they end up stumbling upon the lands of the Fae and discover that the world is a little bit bigger than they originally thought. Those are all of the books that I've hauled in the first half of this year. We have a ton of sequels here, and I'm actually sad to say that I'm really falling behind on sequels at the minute. Like I said, I am about to film a video of a bunch of series that I kind of want to get back on track with over the next probably year or so. I'm aiming to read a book in a series month by month to kind of keep me on track to chip away at those. Shelve it or scrap it is the issue with starting series, if I'm being honest, but it is like a big downside to trying to sample a bunch of the oldest books on my TBR to see if I want to keep them. A lot of them I am unhauling and DNFing. As you will see next month when we get to my mid-year content, I'm going to have like my mid-year series wrap-ups where I'm gonna, like, you'll see the amount of first books in series I've read and decided not to continue on. So I'm starting a lot of series. Not a lot of them I'm continuing on with, but also not a lot of them I want to continue on with. And hopefully over the next few months I'll work a few more sequels back into my TBR as well, because I'm also free from Wheel of Time now, which should open up quite a bit of space every other month for me. Not even every other month, because it takes me, like, I have to read them across 2 months. So I feel like we're maybe going to get back on track for some of the fantasy series that I enjoy soon. So down in my comments, let me know if there are any books in this stack that I've talked about today that you think I'm especially going to enjoy, or any that you yourself have especially enjoyed. Aside from that, guys, leave me a water emoji for the waterfall. Is there a waterfall emoji? Some sort of water emoji for the waterfall on the front of Cursebound. But aside from that, guys, I do hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please don't forget to like if you liked it and subscribe if you wanna. If you head into my description box, you'll find a link to my Goodreads, my Instagram, and my Patreon if you want to follow me on any of those. But that's it from me today, guys. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you'll go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.